Hey everybody, today I'm going to be creating another page in my Around the World Chipboard journal. I've already worked on the opposite side of this page, so I'm just making sure that I have it facing upright, and I'm keeping these pre-drilled holes on the right side of the page. When I was planning out this page, I did pick out two different sheets of Stamperia rice paper, and my original plan was that I was going to use both, but I decided that I loved this cute little polar bear cub so much that I wanted that to kind of be the center and the focal of the page, and I didn't want to distract with other images. I did pre-gesso this page so that all of the colors on my rice paper would be true to color and vivid on that white surface. So I placed down a layer of Dina Wakley gel medium with a Finnabar silicone brush, and now I'm just placing down the layer of rice paper and smoothing it out with my hands before I do another layer of gel medium on top to seal in and smooth out this rice paper. I like to use the Finnabar silicone brush when I'm working with tissues and rice papers as it helps prevent any wrinkles in my work. You may have noticed that this paper doesn't 100% cover the entire width of my chipboard page, so I'm just trimming off the top of it, and now I'm going to put a little bit of water around that excess tissue just to tear and soften the edge so it's not perfectly straight. And by doing this, when I overlap it onto my page, it's going to blend in and not have that harsh straight line. I'm also doing the exact same thing around the compass image with a wet brush. I'm just outlining it and then carefully tearing off the excess with my fingers so that when I lay this down on my page, I don't have a distinct cut line. It's going to just feather out and blend nicely into the background. After I've prepped all the edges, I'm ready to begin gluing this down with my exact same steps of gel medium, then placing the rice paper, and another gel medium layer on top. And you can see, because I feathered out that edge of the rice paper, I don't have two harsh straight lines, and it blends in much nicer. I'm going to place the compass image that we prepped earlier along the top of the page, and because I'm using gel medium, these rice papers become semi-transparent, and you can see not only the background, but that compass image as well. I'm cutting out this label that was on the top of the tissue paper that I trimmed, and it says Arctic World. I'm just cutting around it with my scissors, and after I laid it here and kind of looked at it, I decided Arctic World was taking up too much space, so I'm simply going to cut it in half, save World for another page or another project, and then I will glue down Arctic. I felt like that was just big enough to layer and add some interest in the background over the icy ice caps. So I'm just going to put some gel medium down, place down that word label, and then do another layer of gel medium over the top. The fun thing about layering rice papers is that you're not sacrificing any details. You're simply adding depth and interest in the background because you can see everything as you layer with gel medium. Next, I'm going to use the Tim Holtz Grunge Snowflake stamp set, and I just want to note real quick that the 4 small snowflakes come as a long border stamp. I used the tonic mini snips and cut them apart, so now I can use the small snowflakes individually. I'm going to stamp first with one of the larger snowflakes, and I'm going to place that down onto an acrylic stamping block, and then grab white gesso and a mini blending tool, pick up a little bit of that with my tool, and then start pouncing it onto the stamp. And by loading up the stamp in this way, I can now actually stamp with paints and gessos. So as I hold this up to the camera, you're going to see I get a really detailed image, but it's solid, so it's not going to blend or disappear into the background like it might if you used dye inks. I'm going to load the stamp once again with my mini blending tool and continue stamping all over the background to place snowflakes anywhere I feel like it needs a little bit extra. You also could just not load the stamp in between, and then you're going to get a much lighter impression. Now in this case, I thought that snowflake was much too big, so I just wiped it off with a baby wipe, which I can do because I placed all of this down with gel medium. And I'm going to try again, and I like this placement much better. I'm going to switch to one of the smaller snowflake stamps and follow the exact same steps of loading it with the mini blending tool and stamping it onto my page. I'm going to place these smaller snowflakes in different areas and also overlapping our main polar bear image just to add some interest and detail on his body. And also if you get paint in a place you don't want it, you can just wipe it up with your finger and then let everything dry. Now it's time to start creating a snowy landscape for our polar bear. I'm using Distress Grit Paste, which is a white texture paste that has a sandy, gritty texture to it, which is perfect for creating snow. I'm just going to place it where I want on my page with a palette knife, and then I'm going to go back in and pounce with the palette knife. And by doing this, I'm creating a texture within it. Instead of it just being fully smooth and flat, I'm wanting to look like snowy landscape, ridges, the windswept tundra, if you will. And so I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm happy with it. If I get it in somewhere I don't like, I can just wipe it up with my finger because once again, I'm working on a gel medium rice paper, which allows me to move things and wipe it off very easily without damaging previous layers. As I'm placing down the snow, I'm also looking at where I'm placing it. So I don't want to completely wipe out all of the rocks underneath the polar bear. So I'm carefully placing just some snow there, but also letting some of that still shine through. And also as I'm working in the background, I'm taking care to not completely wipe out all of the rock and the ice caps that are back there. So I'm just placing some of this snow into some of the ice floats around the label word Arctic, and then up around the polar bear, as you can see here along the edge. And I'm really starting to want to create this world, this frozen, icy, tundra-like world by making it look frosted and cold. I have very little product on my palette knife at this point. I'm mostly just trying to create some texture and layers for this frozen tundra. While the grip paste is wet, I'm grabbing a glitter duster that's filled with Distress Rock Candy Glitter, which is a clear glitter. I've placed my page into a splat box so the glitter doesn't get everywhere, and I'm dusting the entire page with rock candy glitter and letting it dry. Now I'm going to add some dark brown paint splatters, so I'm using Dina Wakley Media Umber paint with water and mixing it up with the palette knife. This probably would have been better to do before I placed down all of my white snow, but I didn't think about that, or the idea didn't come to me until I was at this point, and I decided I need some splatters. So I'm just going to work around this by getting some paper towel, tearing it up into small bits, and covering all the snow so the snow remains white and doesn't have brown splatters on it. I'm scooping up this watery paint with my palette knife and just placing down the large splatters first. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to start hitting the palette knife with my hand. And this is going to shake even smaller dots of paint off of the palette knife. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm happy with the coverage and where all of the brown splatters are placed. And then when that's done, I'm just going to lift the paper towel pieces out. And you can see I still have pure white snow. After all the brown splatters have dried, I'm going to once again use one of those smaller snowflake stamps, this time with Dina Wakley Media Mineral Paint. I'm going to load it in the exact same way with a mini blending tool and then place these smaller snowflakes all over the page, building up more texture. And I'm also not worrying about if I overlap some of the splatters or exactly where these go. I'm wanting to create texture and depth in my background. For some darker snowflakes, I've now switched my stamp and I'm using Dina Wakley Media Marine Paint with the same blending tool, so it's mixing with the mineral and creating a really nice dusty blue. And I'm going to stamp this once again all over my page in areas where I feel it needs a little more interest with snowflakes to create that icy tundra look. You also can create lighter and darker versions of this by not repainting up the stamp every single time. So some of them will be a little bit darker, some of them will be a little bit lighter, and you'll get variation in your stamping. After all of those snowflakes have dried, I am now grabbing Ranger Glossy Accents and I'm squeezing it out from the top of the page, holding it upright so this starts to run. And I'm doing this to create icicles. So I'm just going to do this along the top of my page, squeezing extra in certain places so that it starts to drip and create the impression of icicles. And then when I'm happy with how long the drips are, I'm just grabbing the bottle and tapering that drip into more of an icicle drip and instead of a rounded drop. And as soon as I'm happy with all of the endings and they look like icicles, I'm going to lay this flat. And then once again, bring my splat box out and my glitter duster and apply glitter over the top of the icicles and then leave this to dry overnight. Now that I've given those icicles plenty of time to dry, I can begin trimming away the extra rice paper. And the easiest way I found to do this is using a large paper file. All you have to do is place the paper file along the edge of the chipboard and push firmly away from yourself and it'll cut through tissue paper, rice paper, texture paste, everything, and you'll have a nice clean edge for your chipboard page. I'm also going to use the large round precision file, just poking a careful hole through each of those pre-drilled holes to bind the book together. And after I poke the small hole, I'm just going to twist the file in my hand and it's going to cleanly cut around those holes. You may have to twist it back and forth a few times and then your page is complete. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some ideas and were inspired to create your own Arctic Tundra page. If so, I would love to see them, so take a picture and post with the hashtag ArtJournalJunction. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our future mixed media projects and art journaling videos.